All right. Today we're talking about double layouts. Double layouts are really, really difficult. One, because it's two flips, which is really hard, but two, because you cannot use a shape change twice. When you do a double backflip, you have the opportunity to use two shape changes. One where you go from an arch shape to a hollow shape, and then one where you go from a big shape to a small shape, where you tuck in tighter, which makes you accelerate. So you have the opportunity to set a rotation and then accelerate that rotation when you do a double back. When you do a double layout, you have the opportunity to set rotation, but you don't have the opportunity to accelerate rotation, which, as you can imagine, is a lot harder to do because you have to make sure that you get everything you need off the ground, because once you're in the air, there's nothing else you can do. Obviously, at the end, you can tuck in if you need to, but in order to do it properly, you need to make sure you have everything you need off the ground. So we'll look at a few double layouts, and then we'll look at a double layout off bar, a flyaway double layout, because it's interesting to look at the differences and also the similarities. And I think double layout off bar is one of the most difficult bar moves because of the amount of technique that needs to go into the swing. So we'll look at that. But first, we obviously have to watch this clip right here of Bailey Payne doing the lowest double layout ever. So let's watch it. His head is on the trampoline there. And landed. Okay. We're going to go back a second. Why does this work? Okay. This works for a couple reasons. One, like I said, you only have the opportunity to set flip off the ground. So you can see he's throwing his shoulders up and back, and at the same time, well, actually, he's throwing his shoulders down and back because he's trying to go low. He's not trying to go high. So he's throwing his shoulders down and back, and he's throwing his hips up into this big arch shape. And then what you'll notice is the reason this works is because the trampoline, since his weight is behind him and his feet are still on the trampoline, when the trampoline comes up, it's going to throw his feet over him because he's moved his body out of the way of the path of his feet. So the trampoline is now going to throw his feet straight up, which means they're going to go over and around his shoulders, which is going to create a lot of rotation. You can see the trampoline throwing his feet up. His head's completely down. So the trampoline has thrown him into almost an entire flip just barely after he's left the trampoline. And as you can see, the amount of flip that the trampoline has given him was enough to get his feet all the way around. And what you'll notice is there's something funny about double layout that I think is very interesting is watch as he comes down, when he pulls his feet down, instead of continuing to fall, it almost looks like he floats for a second. Right here, as he starts to pull his feet down, it looks like his head is coming down, so you'd think his head would continue to come downward, but if you watch right here, as his hips catch up, his head actually comes back up, and it almost looks like he's lifting the wrong way for a second. And that's because the center of gravity of his body, right around where between his hips and his chest, he's rotating around that. So as he pulls his feet under, it scoops that center of gravity back up in order to get the feet under because he flipped by whipping it over rather than tucking in, which I think is really funny the way that looks. That's that double layout. Now let's look at a regular double layout so we can see how you'd actually probably want to do it. This is Eric at Movement of Sweden. This is from his November monthly training video. Go watch it. It's crazy. Alfred's in this too, and they're both doing ridiculous stuff. So let's take a look at this. So he's on the trampoline. He's about to take off. This is preset. Now, again, I talked about you have to set all the rotation you want off the ground, okay? Everything needs to come from the set because once you're in the air, there's nothing you can do to accelerate yourself. So you can see he's gone from this standing shape, and what he's going to do is as his feet are coming up off the trampoline, he's going to lean his shoulders up and back and try to get his hips to accelerate up and over his head. So he's trying to lift his hips. He's trying to get into this big arch shape. And you can see the path of his hips. If you watch closely, you can see his hips rising. Okay, so what he's tried to do is he's tried to take one of the heaviest parts of his body, his hips, and get it accelerating up into the air and getting his shoulders out of the way so that his hips will accelerate over his head. And obviously that's enough for him to rotate 2 times. And you can see a little bit of that at the end again. When the feet come down, it almost looks like his hips pause. Yeah, so basically all the double layout is how fast can you get your hips up and your shoulders out of the way without throwing your head backwards too much. Because as you throw your head backwards, you start to lose height. You'll get rotation, but you'll lose a lot of height. And you want to find that balance between getting your shoulders back enough to get them out of the way so that your hips can accelerate over your head, but not throwing them back so far that you lose too much height and you won't make the 2 flips around. But basically, it's just about how straight and tight and hollow can you be on the takeoff, and then quickly getting to the arch. Because the quicker you get to that arch shape, the quicker you get into that hip accelerating position, the more rotation you're going to have. If you do it slowly, it's going to be a slower rotation. So the faster you can make that initial shape change, and the faster you can get your shoulders back and your hips up, you're going to end up with a faster rotation. You're going to be able to make it around 2 times. So that's double layouts off of your feet. Let's take a look now at Thomas Shantz showing us how it's done doing double layout off bar. So let's wait for this clip to start. Here we go. Okay. So on bars, shape changes are basically everything because you can't use your legs or your strength to help as much as you can on the ground. Like strong legs can make up for a lot of technique issues on the ground. Obviously, they can't fully make up for them, but they can help. Whereas on bars, that's why a lot of people struggle with bars. Bars is hard. Bars is a lot of technique, and you really can't muscle your way through bars. You can't muscle a double layout. So you'll see as he's coming down, he's got this really, really big arch shape. He's got his armpits pressed forward. He's got his heels back and his hips forward. Okay? And what you'll notice is he's tapping a lot later than you would want to tap for a double flyaway. Because he's going to whip his body open. He's not going to continue traveling into a tight tuck position. So he needs to tap later so that he conserves as much momentum as possible from the swing. Because as you tap, once you're done tapping from your arch to your hollow shape, you start to decelerate as you go up. So if you tapped a little earlier, if he had tapped a little earlier, as he got to the point where he wants to release for double layout, he would be going a lot slower than he would want to be. So he's tapping late so that he maintains as much speed as possible into the double layout. So you'll see now his hips coming up, and instead of letting his hips ride up into the normal release position, he's releasing his head back and pulling with the arms. You'll notice he pulled with his arms a little bit. We'll take a look at that again. So right here, as his hips come up, you can see him pulling his arms. It looks like he's pivoting around his shoulders because he's pulling with his arms. That's just to add as much as you can to that rotation. You can do a double layout without pulling, but it's ridiculously hard, and it requires a gymnastics level of like giant and tap power that that's really hard to get on a regular bar, and without the years and years of like bars training that gymnasts go through. So he pulls, his hips are going up. You can see now it basically becomes the same thing. The idea was how much can you get your shoulders out of the way and your hips going up. And you can see his hips going up and his shoulders got out of the way. So those similarities there with getting he's here, right? He's trying to get his hips up. You can see his hips rising, and he's getting his shoulders out of the way. By doing that pull of the arms, he's getting his shoulders back and out of the way so that his hips can rise over, his chest can get under him to finish that rotation. And he's basically done with like half of a layout by the time he lets go of the bar. Not that really makes this move any easier. The move is ridiculously hard. And he makes it look like it's not hard because Thomas Shantz is crazy. Yeah, so basically the takeaway from this is double layouts are all about how fast can you get your body whipping backwards and getting your hips up. You're getting your shoulders out of the way, and you're getting your hips to go vertically and over your head. How fast can you do that off the ground? The faster you can do that off the ground, the faster you're going to rotate. The slower you do it off the ground, the slower you're going to rotate. The more your head and shoulders go back, you'll rotate quicker, but you'll sacrifice height. And the closer your shoulders stay to vertical, you'll go higher, but you'll rotate slower. So you have to find that balance of getting your shoulders out of the way without dropping them under you too hard. And so trying to figure out that motion is going to basically help you figure out how to do double layout. So yeah, that's double layouts. They're a really difficult move. They're not all that complicated. They're just really, really hard. So I hope that helped anyone who was, I forget who it was who asked for that, but I hope that helped. I hope you guys have learned a little bit about double layout. I hope this helps you figure out any skills you're trying to learn that involve double layouts or double straight flips. Yeah, so let me know what you want to see in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.